usually legit. There we go. All right, so this is our live reaction. This is the Ball podcast. Welcome back. But this is our live reaction to. Is it a real account? Has Donald Trump really been?
Has Donald Trump? We're trying to figure out live. I'm working with sources to find out if Donald Trump has been indicted. We
Come
will
on.
continue. Yep. New York Times. A grand jury in New York has voted to indict Donald Trump over his role in a hush money payment to a porn star.
No way.
No, he did not. He did not wriggle. Unfortunately, I was doing a victory lap on the Donnie. How's Donnie going to wriggle his way out of this jam?
Wow.
Let's find out.
Wow.
So live. This is the Politics podcast.
Wow. So, geez. Well, are you sad you won't get to vote for him a third time?
Yeah, it's pretty upsetting to not be able to vote for him a third time. But could have like a conscientious process. Like he could run from jail, right? Like Lula, or something.
True.
So
In Brazil.
Yeah, so I'll vote for him again.
Very similar politically to Lula and Trump.
Yeah, like I did. Well, they're both authoritarians, right?
Yeah.
So that's the
exactly. If you know anything about Lula,
go to the Lula.
Insulting.
I want to clear up. The Trump thing was a joke, please.
I
assume everyone knows that's a joke. That was an old first date joke for me in New York. I'd hate to have to vote for him a third time, and I got mixed results on that one. I gotta say,
doesn't always land.
Didn't always land. No. Big risk.
Certainly not a pro-Trump podcast. Please let that be known on the record. Yeah. We should clarify as two white guys, especially with me with my new haircut.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I guess, we should. We have taken a firm anti-Nazi stance, so I feel like that's
true. That definitely
helps.
Separates us from Trump and also separates us from
literally every other NBA podcast, which is still not yet to this date. No other NBA podcasts have declared their stance on Nazis. So we are saying against them. Out. Boom.
Exactly. Myers Leonard, you are not allowed on the podcast.
Yeah. So we're not afraid to alienate Nazis.
That was also a joke.
That's a joke. Yeah. This is jokes. We're feeling fun. We're feeling fun because it's a Patreon day.
That's right.
Not behind the paywall yet, but
this is the preview of what you get when you do pay for the Ball Patreon. But before we get into anything else, let's talk about our sponsors, Underdog Fantasy. Today is actually opening day for the MLB, so if you're a baseball fan, you can go on there, and you can also do Pick'em for opening day on the Underdog app using the promo code SLOP. You get a $100 deposit match. As always, I just want to say, I know nothing about baseball, and I did a ticket because I was just like, fuck it, why not? I did Trey Turner higher on 0.5 singles. He hasn't hit that yet, but I know he's good, and he's on the Phillies now. So I did that, and then I did lower on Jacob deGrom's strikeouts, which was at 8, and he was pulled from the game with 7 strikeouts. So, I mean, honestly, we're already killing it this baseball season as it is. But we're going to talk about basketball because you can still go on Underdog, and every given night you can do the Pick'em on there with your favorite player stats tonight. It looks like your favorite team's playing tonight, Sam.
What? No, there's no game tonight.
They canceled it?
You probably didn't hear, but they've canceled it. Yeah. They're running a special on what vaccines and phones are doing to our children. So I'm gonna talk about that later on when we go behind the paywall for about 20 to 30 minutes. So.
Well, that's great to hear. I just want to clarify that we are not a pro-Trump podcast.
He loves the vaccine, by the way.
Trump,
okay. He wants to take credit for it. He's
true.
A wonderful batsman. It's the closest he's come to getting booed at his rallies, which is very funny.
The only thing they'll turn on him for. Incredible. Okay, so let's just hypothetically say the Boston Celtics were playing the Milwaukee Bucks tonight, in theory.
Yeah, so this is like an example page,
Sure.
This is if in theory they were playing the Bucks tonight,
sure.
This is what it would look like.
So if they were playing the Bucks tonight, who would you feel comfortable taking a higher on amongst the best players? We have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Malcolm Brogdon.
I would probably take a lower on Jason Tatum points.
Okay.
So it feels like it would feel like Jason Tatum goes doo-doo mode and the Celtics still win game.
Okay. So to clarify here, Jason Tatum did just have a really good game in a game that they lost, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
In theory.
Yeah, that we're ignoring that because that would go against everything I've been saying on this podcast.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Tatum's stats have actually looked pretty good recently, but his higher lower right now is 28.5. We're gonna take the lower on Tatum's points in theory if they were to play, and then let's go over to one of the Bucks players and pick a higher lower for them as well. So we have Giannis, we have Drew, who just absolutely went off last night. We have Chris Middleton, we have Brooke Lopez, we have Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton. Geez, you can pick from their whole fucking team on here for some reason.
So there's only 2 games tonight.
True. That's a good point. Yep. Yeah, there's only 2 games on because it's MLB opening day and Adam Silver's a coward. So who are we feeling? Are we feeling Pat the landlord and his return to Boston, his homeland of
That's
true.
Yeah, no, he does. He could get gentrification powers from being on the street there. So, maybe that would be a good one. Honestly, I mean, I think Giannis always, even when Giannis has a bad game, he still ends up with like insane stats by the end of the game. So
okay, so
I think like
points are 31.5 though.
Yeah, you might want to. Honestly, I might go higher on his turnovers, but also higher on his blocks. He's definitely going to have more than one block.
So, all right, let's go higher on Giannis's blocks, lower on Tatum's points. You put in $10 there, you can win $30 if that hits. You got Tatum at 28.5. That's a pretty high point number. And then you have Giannis. All he has to do is get 1 block, and you're good there. So you can go on Underdog today and sign up using the promo code SLOP. Every single night you can do it. They also have a ton of cool stuff coming up for the playoffs. We've been doing drafts for the playoffs as well. And you can do MLB, NBA, all that fun stuff. So please check it out if you have not already. It supports the program. All right, Sam. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Golden State Warriors because it feels like, Bill's been saying that Miami is the Michael Myers team.
Well, yeah, I would say that they're the Michael Myers team this year as well, but the actor Michael Myers, and specifically this is their post-Love Guru era. So they are done. They will disappear for a while until they come back in Inglourious Bastards for like a slight cameo. Is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I definitely don't buy the Miami Heat as the Michael Myers never actually dies or goes away team. I would say that the Warriors fit that bill a little bit more to me in terms of every time I feel like I pronounce them dead in the water, they're always lingering somewhere in the background. Earlier in the season, I said they're not contenders. I was like, I finally, after waffling on it for a while, I was like, you just can't lose this many games on the road. You're never healthy. You're defending your title, and you're not able to quite get everyone right. And then they went on a 4-game winning streak, of course. Yep. And they had their longest winning streak of the season. They still haven't really all put it together for a longer streak that everyone kind of Zach Lowe's been teasing this year. But it does feel like this might be a turning point for the Warriors. They're, once again, winning games again, but most of them are at home. I've watched a lot of them recently just because they've been on national television a ton, and they've actually won a decent amount of games recently. But the reason that I really bring this up is because I feel like this is kind of the end of the road for this iteration of the Warriors. Draymond Green's a free agent after the season. We know that he was not paid in favor of Jordan Poole. We know that there has been weird comments out there by him and by the team about the business of it all. And then more recently, we get Bill Simmons, who we know Bill kind of theorizes these things, quote unquote. Really what it is that he hears things behind the scenes. He hears the whispers, but he doesn't want to fully attach his names to it. So he says that it's essentially a prediction, right? And his most recent prediction was a pretty wild one in terms of Draymond going to the Mavericks after the season, Kyrie re-upping there, and then potentially LeBron joining them. I think that part of it I'm going to remove from the equation. It feels a little bit too far-fetched in my mind to think that that LeBron could join that trio in Dallas. But the Draymond Green part was interesting to me, and I had a few Warriors fans actually say to me they kind of buy it a little bit just because, as we've talked about, the Mavericks are desperate, and the Mavericks are trying to save the Luka Doncic era, and their history shows that they are willing to pay a big price for someone who might be perceived as a star. Now, Draymond still is a very good player. He had an interesting night the other night where he got thrown out. He almost got thrown out of the game. He rallied the team back after getting into it with Brandon Ingram and Herb Jones and all that. And he still is incredibly effective for the Warriors. I question how it would look on other teams. But I guess my question for you is, one, do you buy the Draymond rumors to the Mavericks? And two, do you think that this is the end of the road when you consider what's happening with Draymond, plus Bob Myers' contract is up at the end of the year, and there have been rumors about Steve Kerr's retirement as well?
I mean, I think a lot of this is, I mean, I feel like I'm not really changing up my stance when I go back to the fact that I really do think that this is a Warriors franchise that's kind of coming to terms, a brain trust that's coming to terms with the fact that they're not actually that good at their jobs. They've just been extraordinarily lucky to have drafted, basically been handed Steph Curry recovering from, ankle injury just in time and to nail the Draymond Green pick. That's like really the legacy of the Bob Myers Warriors. And I think we've seen with the two timelines approach, kind of the hanging on to that until the very last second, and then still not really gracefully pivoting from that. Just basically their inability to put a real kind of keep Kevin Durant chased out the door. That's kind of, people glance over that one. I guess just what I'm saying is this is an empire that's been dying for a very long time. Like they really are America's team in that way. They are in like late stage capitalism. Is why Draymond wants to leave and all of our trains are derailing all of a sudden and like throwing chemicals everywhere. I wonder what that is like all about. It's almost like we didn't do any infrastructure spending and we gave Jordan Poole $30 million a year so he can spend $500,000 per date with Ice Spice. Once again, another shot he missed on a high volume, low efficiency. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there that you have Steph Curry and the West is bad. So I do think that, if they make a deep run, can it be salvaged? I don't know. I mean, I also just think Draymond, I feel like that this is also kind of a decision like the Warriors made, where I think that kind of Draymond's shtick tired them out and they got a little ahead of their skis and were like, well, we don't need Draymond. I mean, we built the empire. We don't,
sure.
He's a key component, but we can find someone who's like, look at what we did with Wiggins. We pivoted out of the D'Angelo Russell thing.
Kuminga will build into something.
Yeah, like we don't need that. And I think that's a huge mistake because Draymond Green is absolutely their second most important player behind Steph Curry.
It's been the linchpin of the entire defense for a decade.
Yeah.
That's kind of the even with some of the offensive regression, even with some of I don't even think he's near his peak defensively, but he is the thing that has always made the defense go. He's one of the 5 greatest playoff defenders of all time. He showed that he can still reach that level at points like he did last year.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that he's talked about is the fact that it's really hard for him to get up for a Tuesday night game when they're in Oklahoma City. And I think that's shown this year with this team. They feel like they've put in the work. They feel like they don't necessarily need to continue to prove themselves over and over again. And that has led to this team underperforming all year. That has led to this team losing on the road pretty much no matter who they play. They're going to probably head into the playoffs with 9 or 10 road wins on the season, which is just insanely low and something that I've never seen before from a team that I consider to be a good team, like a talented team that certainly should be performing at a higher level. Now, they have had some bad injury luck, but every team has had every team has had injuries throughout the season. The Steph injury was unfortunate, but they're also barely above 500 with Steph when he plays. The Wiggins one is obviously the big one. We don't really know what's going on with that situation. But I guess I bring this up because I feel as though the Draymond stuff feels very legit to me. It feels like he sees that the franchise doesn't value him in the same way that you were just saying. I don't think that it means that he's 100% going to turn down a big offer if they give him one this offseason. But it's basically getting to a point where you got to make that decision. And the Jordan Poole contract kind of locks them in a situation where unless there's a team that's willing to take a flyer on Jordan Poole on a huge contract, which maybe that they have built, maybe it is the Lakers thing where they've built up enough in the media with Jordan Poole and with the NBA at large that they think that he really does still have high value despite being pretty massively overpaid, it seems now. Maybe that is the case, but in my opinion, I think that they are probably going to have to look at this. They extended Wiggins. They have some younger guys. Obviously Wiseman moving out changes things a little bit, but you have one more year to make a decision on Kuminga and Moody. We'll see what happens with them. They're kind of coming down to where they're going to either have to continue to pay the largest luxury bill in the history of the NBA by a fairly wide margin, or they need to figure out a way to either move on from one of Clay, Draymond, or Poole. Because Wiggins is locked in actually at a decent contract. Like, he's only making like slightly over $20 million per year, which is actually when he does play, he's proven to be, I would say, above that level, if not at that level. And now you're coming down to a situation where Draymond's going to want one more payday. Like, Draymond, as much as Draymond has gotten paid in his career, he's never gotten like a full max. Like, he's never gotten like the crazy, like he's always gotten like the maximum that he can be extended, which is like high 20s. I don't even think if I remember correctly, I might be off here. I don't know if he's ever made $30 million in a year, which
I don't know. I don't think he has. He started out at like 14 or 15 on his second contract. Like,
yeah. And they were extending him and they were giving him money that was, I could look up the exact details right now, but they were giving him money. His last extension was 4 years, $99 million for an average of $24 million per year. So he made 22, 24, 25. He has a player option this year for 27. All it takes is one team being willing to be like, hey, we'll give you $30 million for 3 years, we'll give you $390 or whatever it is. And I know that he is a little bit older now. He's going into his age 33 season next year, but he's still an effective player. He's still an important player. And maybe he is looking for one more payday, and the respect that they showed to Jordan Poole, honestly, that he might feel as though he deserves. So I think that there really is. And if there is one team that is desperate enough to save the Luka situation, like we talked about last time, you have Kyrie, you need to maximize these next 2 years. Draymond, I don't know how that fit would be. I think it might be a little bit clunky, but Draymond would certainly bring a level of defensive intensity, which they are absolutely missing. He would certainly make them a competent defense, which is the main thing that the Mavs are lacking. Again, last night I was watching that second half defense was kind of pathetic from them. Luka as great as he has been offensively and as incredible as he was down the stretch of that game, defensively is still just there's no effort, there's no energy, and Draymond is a guy that certainly will get that out of your team if that's what you're looking for. So I actually think that could be a possibility if he does hit the free agent market this summer. I think that they would have to move around some contracts and figure some stuff out if they are the Mavericks. But if Draymond's going to leave anyway and you want to do right by him, it's a possibility that happens. And I just want to say, from the Warriors' perspective in all this, I think it would be a massive mistake. I think outside of the context of the Warriors, I'm not sure Draymond's going to be maximized in the same way that he is with the Warriors. But to lose Draymond because you signed that Poole contract and then to have him go to a conference rival who he could possibly make better and make into a competent two-way team would be just a massive, massive failure by this front office. And like you said, it would just continue kind of a recent string of questionable moves that they have made because they bought into this ideology that had proved to fail with the two timelines thing.
I guess just like my thing was like, because on the one hand, you could argue this is the, this is the salary cap and the repeater specifically doing what it's supposed to do, right?
Sure.
Like, kind of, it's supposed to kind of chip away at super teams, kind of encourage turnover, kind of, make teams a little bit more vulnerable, make the league more interesting, right? The Warriors were also the huge beneficiaries of the cap jump in 1 year.
Yes.
And a players association that was, I think, I don't think this is talked about enough, that we're correctly skeptical of cap smoothing. Like, why would you give the owners money to hold on to? Like, look at how the Lamar Jackson thing is playing out in the NFL right now, and kind of how owners get about money stuff and like wonder why the Players Association went with that. But they were able to basically add one of the 15 best players of all time at the absolute peak of his career to a 73-win team. And the fact that they, you could say, but they lost him for just D'Angelo Russell. And it's like, who they turned into Andrew Wiggins. That's not.
And Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah. And which is like not nothing, and that was not a trade that, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe they should get credit for that trade, but I don't know. I guess what I'm saying here.
Kind of what I'm trying to say here is that what they should get credit for is duping everyone into kind of juicing up D'Angelo Russell's value and duping everyone into thinking that he's worth I know Wiggins had low value at the time, but that Minnesota first was always going to be valuable. And duping everyone into thinking that he still had positive value on that contract, which is exactly what I'm talking about with Jordan Poole. Because the Warriors have kind of become the new Lakers in that they juice up the value of the players that are on their team because of the fact that they're playing with Steph and Draymond, and they make them look so good in that specific context. Yeah. And then if they go anywhere else, it's like, is this thing going to work? I guess is my whole point on this. And I think that they maximize the most. And then when they go elsewhere, we saw with Harrison Barnes for a while, he wasn't the 1A guy that people thought he was going to be. And it feels as though this is kind of a constant cycle, which is why the only way out of it to me is if they you see what Jordan Poole's doing right now, where like he has a few really good games in a row. Maybe he has a good playoffs and he can kind of boost his value. Like in the last 3 games, I know this because I've been fucking throwing up watching it. I want to go on record. I do not dislike players like that. Like there's very few players I really don't like in the NBA. After watching that Sixers-Warriors game as a Sixers fan, Jordan Poole has skyrocketed to number 1 on my most hated list. Walking around like it reminds me of the Kanye tweet when he's like, he walks around like he's Pac. Mm-hmm. Like he was walking around like he was Steph, like dancing on the court. And I know this is the Warriors thing, but like Clay, Steph, and Draymond have earned it. They've won 4 titles as the best players. I will allow them to do that.
Yeah.
Jordan Poole is just completely thrown in at the end here. He has a game where he scores 33 points against the Sixers on 10 of 19 shooting, and I'm losing my mind. And since he's actually had 2 pretty good games as well, but against Minnesota and New Orleans. But what I'm trying to get at here is the way that I think that the Warriors could either get themselves out of this situation or kind of make the most of it is boost Jordan Poole's value, hope a team takes a flyer on that contract, bring back Draymond and continue to develop the younger guys until you make a decision on them. And then you might have a chance to kind of extend and maximize the prime of Steph. Because I just don't see this team working. As we've seen, they've already slipped defensively without Wiggins. They slipped defensively in general before that. And without Draymond, I think everything kind of falls apart with this team.
I just don't understand, like, because Jordan Poole was a first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
You have match rights.
I'm going to be honest. I understand wanting to pay your guys and take care of your guys and shit, but we've seen this so many times recently where the guy gets paid like a crazy number, and then a year later you're like, why didn't you just let it go to free agency? Like we saw it with Michael Porter Jr. We're seeing it with Jordan Poole, like giving basically max contracts.
Tyler Hero.
Yeah, like Tyler Hero, like guys that just like are good players, but like have either not proven it or might have some question marks about their game. And I mean, I honestly think that the punch played a factor in. Oh wait, no, the punch was after he got paid, right?
Yeah, that was like supposedly what instigated it. Was while Draymond was having like conversations and the Warriors were crying poor to him, and you're paying Jordan Poole. That's that might be like speculation on other people's parts. I don't know that, but
sure,
like,
yeah, I think that's what that was what everyone was saying.
Yeah, but I feel like
okay.
I guess I just don't understand, like, especially in that situation, you've got a franchise guy there. And I mean, look, I know
Draymond punched him 10 days before he got the extension.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. You're right.
So that's what I'm trying to say. It's possible Draymond knew, but also at the same time, whether that plays a factor or not, I remember people saying that they felt like they had to take care of him after that, like to show that they supported him. But also, like, I don't think these things happen overnight. Like, I don't think that extension happened in 10 days. Is there a get punched in the face luxury tax? Like,
well, also the fact that the Warriors were just absolutely fucking furious that somebody leaked the video.
Yeah.
And that the media was echoing that. Why are you mad that the video got leaked? Like, that's like what happened.
Sure.
Like
the whistleblowers are the ones that are the problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, why is that? That doesn't change that this is a huge fucking problem for like you and your team. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess just all of like the Warriors discourse stuff like just does kind of annoy me because I really do. I'm really enjoying watching like Joe Lacob and like the upper management of the Warriors who were convinced that they were like very smart, like realizing in real time that they actually, some might say there were low interest rates for a long time. And when they were building their team, and suddenly there's high interest rates and that seems like it's bad for Silicon Valley. And,
well, look, they're printing money every night at the Chase Center, I've been told.
Yeah,
that was Zach's favorite line to repeat for like a year. Like, they're printing money over there, and it's like,
and I'm sure they do, but like,
I mean, at a certain point, you are gonna realize you need to make money on the team, though. Is what I'm trying to say. Is like, all this shit is great, and all this shit is awesome about like wanting to, and I think the fact that they did pay this repeater tax and this luxury tax is awesome. Every owner should continue to do that for the team until it proved, but eventually it does prove to be not profitable for him, and he's going to stop doing it. I think that the standard that they set that you should pay to try to win titles is what every team that's contending should do essentially every single year. But it has come to a point where we don't know if this team's going to age out. We don't know if this team's going to compete. I do think that what happens in the playoffs is going to dictate what happens with this. So if the Warriors lose, all right, so right now, if the playoffs started today, they played the Kings in the first round, in the 3-6 matchup. If the Warriors lose that series, I think it's definitely over. I think it's like that's it. If the Warriors win that series, then they get Memphis in the second round. And then it's like or honestly, maybe the Lakers in the second round, which we'll talk about later. If you get that and then you get back to a conference finals, you could talk me into this team making things work for another year or two because they might feel like they're really close and they can make some other moves. But all of it comes down to that Jordan Poole contract. All of it comes down to Draymond feeling like he wasn't kind of like spit in the face, basically. And like he feels like a player who feels like he should get respect because he's one of the best defenders of all time and that he did a lot for the franchise and maybe he doesn't feel as though they kind of valued him in the way that they should have. So, right, like the tea leaves are out there. Someone found a clip where from the early in the season, around the time of the contract negotiations, where Draymond said his favorite player in the league that isn't Steph is Luka from his podcast. So, like, the tea leaves, there's certainly indications there that something could happen. Would also make more sense in my brain for why they traded for Kyrie if they knew that Draymond was a possibility this upcoming offseason. So, all things to consider.
How they're going to do that if they bring back the Warriors aren't taking Davis Bertans from you in a sign-in
trade.
Sure.
Like, sorry, I mean, you'd have to move some money around, but this would have to basically be a situation where you either dump money. I mean, it's hard to get to that cap space for sure. I'm not going to.
They just don't have. Yeah, I guess that's the thing about Bill saying that makes it. I mean, you can always do it for sure.
We do this every time, and then the players get what they want. That's just the reality. Like
I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that, but I also think we're hitting a new era in the NBA where we are seeing extreme asset poverty, like for a lot of teams. Mm-hmm. Like this did not used to happen. Like you didn't used to have. There are like 7 to 8 teams in the league right now that have like 1 to 2 picks total they can trade in the next like 10 years. That like did not used to happen. The Lakers, the Bucks, the Mavericks, the Sixers have like 1.5. Like there's like other, all of these teams have no assets, and I just don't think you can get. Like, I just don't think you can do that anymore. Like, I think there's limits to this. Like, the Hardaway Jr. and the Bertans contracts both go 2 more years at 17 each.
Sure.
That's the only other movable money you have is Maxi Kleber and Reggie Bullock. And that's still only $21 million. You need a sign and trade in that aspect. And what are the Warriors getting for helping you in that case? Like, I guess Maxi Kleber, but is that worth doing the trade? Like,
so right now, the
hardball at that point.
Like, if the Knicks get the Mavericks pick this year, or the Mavericks keep their own pick, we just talked about this last episode. Who are they going to try to go after? The OG Anunoby types, the defensive guys. If Draymond getting Draymond Green only costs you, and like this is the super brain genius Warriors front office who is trying to get younger or at least get more assets to trade for another guy, you have a potential top 10 pick. And then if it doesn't convert, you can trade 24 and 26 to either dump contracts, or you can do it to potentially get Draymond back, whatever it is. Once again, I'm kind of the mindset that if Draymond wants this to happen, it's probably going to happen. Like, that's just teams figure it out. Like, I feel like we do this every offseason, and then we get to the offseason, and it's like, oh, they figured it out. Like, nothing is impossible anymore. It's like you can use the Utah Jazz's cap space and give them a first-round pick. Like,
so I guess that's just my thing is like, yes, it always gets figured out, but like it always gets figured out in a way that's like really fucked up and seemed beyond the pale. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Rudy Gobert trade happened because everyone was like, wait, what? How many fucking picks did you get? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're the Mavericks...
I'm not saying it's the smartest move. I'm just saying it will happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it happens, sure, I guess, just, man, and that team... I still think I mean it's good in theory, but if you have to give up Maxi Kleba and you're like 11 pick or 10th pick, whatever it's
you're going all in on the fact that you think that Luka could ask out. Basically, you're like, we're not letting this happen. We're going to try to maximize the next 2 years, and then we'll figure out the rest later.
Which also though, by the way, I mean, I guess that's the thing, because Kyrie could just leave, and you have zero control over that.
Yeah.
And then is Draymond still interested in coming?
Maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not.
No.
I mean, it does make the cap magic, because then you can just sign
then
him.
You can just sign him. Yeah, but then the rest of your team sucks. So like,
yeah, it's hard. What I don't know. The Mavericks bum me out, man. They're like somehow they have Luka Doncic, and they're somehow like more depressing than the Hornets to me.
Look, I watched the Sixers Mavericks last night, and it was one of the worst Sixers first halves I've seen maybe all season. Harden was coming back from injury. He looked terrible. Embiid looked terrible. Honestly, the bench unit was the one that kept the team in the game. And the Sixers were they up at halftime, or they were down like 3 at halftime against the Mavericks? And I was like, oh man, this team is just not. And the second half of that game, the Sixers basically were like, all right, we're going to try now. And then they just easily pulled away in the fourth quarter. Like, the Mavericks' energy levels, effort levels, the role players' inability to hit shots is that it's definitely concerning. If I were a Mavericks fan, I would be like, we need to make serious moves this offseason. And I would consider something like this, just because it's like, what the fuck else are you going to do? The free agent class sucks. You don't really have another way to get guys. Like, I don't know. We'll revisit this in the offseason, but I tend to think, unless the Warriors make the conference finals, I think this is it for them. And I think that and I think there is a possibility they do, but I think that the Mavericks would probably be desperate enough to do some kind of move like this. So we'll see. This is the end of the non-Patreon portion. If you want to listen to the rest of this episode or watch the rest of this episode, we will be doing our first ever Mickey Mouse March team, where we go through and we talk about the players who played way above their heads this March for the month or for stretches. And we will talk about whether we think it's real or not. And then at the end, we will pick our first ever Mickey Mouse March team. And then we are also going to be talking about a bunch of other things that happened around the NBA, including, I know I said I wouldn't do it to him, but I have to. The MVP straw poll from him, Von Temps. Also, we'll be talking about how weak the Western Conference is once again, because I have some stats that kind of were crazy in my head. And then we will also talk about the Lakers' potential to win the West, and the Beam team finally clinching the playoffs, first time in 16 years, breaking the streak, longest in the history of professional sports. So congrats to the Sacramento Kings. If you want to listen to that, watch that. Link is in the description. Go sign up for the You Know Ball Patreon now.